Hello, everybody. I am Nicholas J. Fuentes. You're watching the Nicholas J. Fuentes Show. Since this is our first episode, I thought I'd offer a brief introduction. I am a libertarian with a small L, a Republican, and a constitutionalist. I believe in individualism, American exceptionalism, and small government. Now, our first topic for our first episode is the 2016 presidential election. Now, this election has been...
As you may know, any professional that's worth their salt understands their value proposition, right? That said, what can we learn from others?
I totally disavow Nick Fuentes, and this content is purely for educational purposes. Disclaimer, the opinions and viewpoints presented in this video belong solely to the individual speaking and do not represent the official stance, policy, or position of the public company or its affiliates.
Like, there is a growing number of disaffected young men in particular in America who are really deeply unhappy and have been told they're to blame for all of society's ills. And his message is resonating with them. He talks about more than Jews and blacks and women on his show. When he talks about those groups, it's not great.
People were known famously for using indoor voices and holding the door open for you and saying, "Oh, after you." And if black people are known for being magnanimous, like, for example, there's a problem at the register and they say, "Oh, it's no problem. Really, please, I get it. We all have those kinds of days." If black people are known for behaving like that, a black person would walk into a restaurant and they would be seated right away. "Oh, please, a table just opened up." If they were really good tippers, if they were really good at tipping and tipped large amounts and said, "Thank you for the incredible service. You deserve it." Waiters would love to serve them. They'd say, "Oh, a black table? My favorite." They'd be fist fighting in the back of the restaurant. "No, I want the black table. I want the table of black women." It's a Saturday night, it's a Saturday night, an hour before we close, and 7 black women just came in. "I want that table. No, I want it. That tip is mine. Those considerate people, that's my table."
From that standpoint, these interviews do have real value because maybe there really is a need that needs to be filled.
Stroke of good fortune or just being a normal person, you had not heard of Nick Fuentes until this month. Chances are you've heard of him now.
Nick Fuentes is odious and despicable.
He's what I would call a racist.
What we are watching is a very old strain of the right, vying for control of its future. This right goes back to Pat Buchanan. It goes back to Charles Lindbergh. The idea that the right should be an ethno-nationalist coalition, which doesn't have room for immigrants, very much does not have room maybe for Jews, that is really not comfortable with anyone who's not what they call a heritage American. To talk about it, I want to bring on John Gans.
Nick Fuentes, I would say, is the most popular representative of neo-Nazism in America.
So I don't think he actually believes anything. I think he's from this new culture that says the most outrageous things for attention, and I'm not going to give him any attention. I am very clear on anti-Semitism. I am very clear on who and what we should stand for, and I think it's performance art. However, know that exists, and that will affect people. So now let's look and take another step back from that. Okay, so people hear that and take it seriously. It's our job to understand, why are they susceptible to that? How is it that anyone with any sense of logic and decency can fall for that? They've been disenfranchised by something. What is that?
It's not that deep. Everything that's going on, and you have all these, like, think tanks and conservative publications and influencers, and they're all trying to understand why I'm popular. Here's why everyone loves Nick. Here's why Nick is popular. And this is what's delicious about it. It's like, it's not that deep, bro.
One quick note, you may be confused with all the amphibious visuals and the frogs. So Nick is the leader of what they call the Groyper Army, and they are frogs. They're not actually frogs, they're mostly young white men, but they use cartoon frogs on the computer. you notice there's a lot of consternation around what's going on, who are these followers. There's a lot of focus on the market itself, not so much on the supplier in this case, which would be Nick Fuentes. We are hearing a lot of conversation, a lot of focus on the people that are enjoying his content, his followers who are loyal to him. And this normality bell curve is representative of the market share, right? And so right now where it looks like we might be at that 16% tipping point, or it's called the chasm in this visual, where the early adopters are now starting to break through into the early majority. And I think that's really getting a lot of people worked up, especially in the conservative, the right wing in the United States of America. And it all started with this Tucker Carlson interview that just happened a few weeks ago, and that they think that might be that tipping point that you're seeing there in the normality curve. And so it's interesting to see, but there's been a lot of focus on these two groups. Now, what is cluster analysis when it comes to a market analysis and marketing? That's when you're trying to find differentiation between two different groups that might be interested in a similar product. So in this case, we would be looking at right-wing conservatives that are MAGA and right-wing conservatives that are the groypers, right? And how are these two groups, how are they collecting within each other? And really, if there is a tipping point, what we might start to see is that gap between the two groups is actually starting to get a little bit closer. And so Nick Fuentes is actually starting to pull from the MAGA conservative group into his own group. And so with all the focus on the consumer side, I want to focus on the supplier side and figure out what is it exactly about Nick Fuentes that is so valuable? What is he supplying that is so interesting to these young white men in America? Yeah, so that's said perfectly, I might add. But I would say one extra thing. The cluster analysis is very handy for analyzing if there's a market share that's not tapped into yet. So if there's a cluster of consumers after some statistical analysis and after you do the variance and all that good stuff, you end up finding hopefully some data points that begin to cluster together that gives you a clear idea of what the consumer segments might be looking for and what the market is currently offering from a supply side to meet those particular needs. And if there's nothing being supplied or there's a scarce supply at the moment, you might have an opportunity there. It's just MBA business school talk.
I know all this stuff because I'm obsessed with this stuff. It's not like I want to know it. Once you get into it, I know all these guys that know about baseball, football, all that. When I was younger, I did too. I don't know about that anymore. I know about politics. And it's so scary that most people I talk to don't know what I'm talking about. I can bring up almost any subject of Nick Fuentes, and he knows what I'm talking about. And sometimes teaches me something. That's what impresses me.
I see an intricate machine. I hate Rubik gold.
But it looks like the entire swath of right-wing commentators and the political landscape is engaged in a head-to-head warfare, of course, between two groups, which some people are calling conservative Inc. or conservative mainstream, which would be, I guess, what I would be a part of. And there's this other group that are called the groypers. Now, what's really weird is that group also calls themselves America First. But in reality, I think anybody who supports Donald Trump probably is an America First individual. So what you're finding is these two groups that claim to define what it really means to be right-wing, what it truly means to be a conservative, but they don't agree with each other. In fact, you have one group, Conservative Inc., and a lot of these people calling this other group of groypers white supremacists, white nationalists, absolute insane fringe individuals, which of course this group of America First and right-wingers claim isn't true. And truly, I want to answer the question today through facts and not through fiction on what it means to be right-wing, because rather than letting two groups who are in the spotlight decide about what it means to be a conservative, why am I going to listen to some guy in a suit or even some guy in a cheaper suit on a show tell me what it means?
What do you mean cheap? I don't know if my suit's necessarily cheaper than Charlie Kirk's. He looks like a schlub. Anyway, I just have to interrupt. Do you now appreciate America First? That's the thing. My show is like, you know, the content on my show is so substantive. That's why I made a show, honestly. It's because I hate all other content. All other content to me is just so grating. And I'm not even like the most educated guy. I'm not even the most well-read guy, but I just get it. I just get it. Jeez. Okay.
There are real definitions out there, and we'll let the definition of truth decide what it actually means. But before we get to that, I want to let you know something absolutely insane. Not only does arguing and fighting stink, but also so does animal urine pee. So, like I said, we're talking about what it means to be right-wing. When we think about right-wing, I mean, what are we talking about? Chicken wings? We're talking about pigeons? No, we're talking about birds. We're talking about people heckling at each other. And I've heard a lot of people saying today that they have the real definition of what it means to be right-wing. Because really, conservative is an interesting thing, and previously it was just enough to call a right-wing person somebody who believed in what? A few things. They believed in a smaller government, lower taxes, and a healthy economy, which is fantastic,
big
right?
Thing.
And left-wing people on the other
hand.
Elijah Schaefer.
No. Wrong. It just bewilders me. People are going to make a whole video explaining conservatism.
Okay, well, enlighten us.
Definition is so skin deep. It's so... Oh, no. This is all wrong. What does right wing mean? Oh, well, it's not a chicken wing. Do you know what right wing means? Do you know the origin of the term right wing, left wing? Maybe that would give us a little insight into where these terms derive from. The terms right and left wing come from the French Revolution. They didn't exist prior to the French Revolution. Obviously, during the French Revolution, you had the monarchy, Catholic monarchy of King Louis XVI. You had liberals, Enlightenment liberals, who opposed the king, who opposed the monarchy. They were advancing liberalism, secularism, egalitarianism, things like nationalism, republicanism, right? They were advancing ideology. Monarchy, the ideology is a modern development. It is the modern age. The modern age is 1600 onward. After the Treaty of Westphalia, or around the 1600s, when the modern nation state surfaced, that's when, I know the Treaty of Westphalia, I think it was like 1510s, right? But in any case, the modern era defined in history is from 1600 onward. Ideology is a modern invention. It's maybe 300 years old or thereabouts. And because prior to that, you didn't have this idea of conservative and liberal and right wing and left wing. You had the monarchy. It was only recently, with the invention of the printing press and the advent of individualism and the private self, did you have these kinds of political ideas. The nation state itself, and this idea of enfranchisement, is very new, very modern development. Anyway, so where does right and left wing come from? So you had this Catholic monarchy in France, Louis XVI. You had people who opposed the monarchy. And the way they split up their National Assembly was on the right side, the right wing of the National Assembly, all the members who were in support of the monarchy of the old regime were seated. And on the left wing, on the left side of the dais, were seated all the opponents of the monarchy. And so there's sort of two ways to think about this. On the one hand, you have a
Middle East conflict.
The Golan Heights, which they occupy to the present day.
So real quick, pretty interesting stuff there, right? I mean, I think it's pretty informative. If you've not taken a deep dive and been diligent with Mr. Fuentes' content like I have gone through the liberty of doing for all of you, you would not see those types of monologues or analyses coming from him. And so I think it's worth mentioning, taking a look at his breadth of knowledge. And now he's going to walk through a couple different things. I think here he's talking about the Middle East conflict.
So in 73, on Yom Kippur, Egypt and Syria launch a two-sided attack.
JFK assassination.
About the JFK assassination, and in particular, the role of intelligence. So they say there's the mafia angle, but there's also the intelligence angle. And they say that it is people like James Angleton who conspired to kill Kennedy. People talk about how Jack Kennedy, there's a very famous quote that's attributed to him, after the failed Bay of Pigs invasion of Cuba in 1961, which was a national embarrassment, national humiliation, JFK was purported to have said, I'm going to shatter the CIA into 1,000,000 pieces and throw it into the wind, or something to that effect. And JFK did sack the leadership of the CIA.
Russia, Ukraine.
As almost like a human shield. And Russia knows that if they invade, they're attacking an American economic partner. Maybe Ukraine's in the European Union. It's like a soft guarantee that doesn't involve a ton of American security personnel and equipment on the border. That might be an effective tripwire. But this is not good enough for the Ukrainians and the Europeans. They're saying that's not going to do anything. Russia might invade anyway. So what Ukraine wants is they want a defensive pact. And Europe wants America to bring in a defensive pact. But here's what's funny about this. America doesn't want to do this for Ukraine. Europe doesn't even want to do this for Ukraine. This is what Kiev wants.
So there is some value there.
Kiev wants
But again,
security.
I disavow. He does seem to have a genuine desire to focus on the quality of the supply itself, which is the information.
To understand just what Tucker did here, we must actually examine what Nick Fuentes says on his show, and has said for almost a decade, because he was asked precisely 0 questions about any of what you're about to see by Tucker Carlson.
A lot of women want to be raped. And when I say raped, I mean like, that sounds bad when I say it like that. Raise your right hand. All right, everybody raise your right hand. Raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I will kill, rape, and die for Nicholas J. Fuentes. I will continue my crusade against women in politics. Who cares? You know, enough with the Jim Crow stuff. Who cares? Oh, and to drink out of a different water fountain. Big deal.
White people are every single bit justified in being racist. Every single bit justified, to the extent that that means going out of your way to avoid black people when you see them.
Nick Fuentes is a Hitler admirer and a Holocaust denier.
Buddy, it's Führer Friday. It is Hitler Friday. Shut up.
So talk about a wide variety of an experience that you can get through his talk show. For one, he does provide some in-depth information that's engaging and interesting with his delivery. And then Ben Shapiro shows some clips here where he just flies off the deep end and starts going off about who knows what, enough to make you blush, terrible stuff. And there's just no place for that. There's no place for that. And especially in a professional setting, right? This is a service that he is providing, and really within the professional realm. And there's a lot of studies that are done on this about the question of authenticity and leadership and what that actually means. It's a pretty common viewpoint to have that authenticity is a key part of being a good leader, when a lot of research shows that authenticity is sort of like a made-up gray area, because what does it actually mean? You have to have a real true sense of who your real self is, and it's largely based off of how you would like others to perceive you. And so it's a slippery slope when you start talking about authenticity and leadership. The other side of the coin, though, is if you have someone who is uber focused on their craft, their research, and their expertise, then the quality of work will speak for itself, and the leadership is more through proving through their action and their quality output than maybe more of a relational, transformational type leader. So maybe that's what we're looking at with Mr. Fuentes, but I guess we'll see.
And it's like, look, it's so not complicated. We don't want to be owned by Israel anymore. Like, it's so not complicated.
I mean, we're trying to get good things done, but also have a good time doing it, and and have like a sense of humor, So I mean, the sort of the left wanted to make comedy illegal, Like you can't make fun of anything. So then it's like comedy sucks. It's like nothing's funny. You can't make fun of anything. It's like legalize comedy. Yeah.
Why? There's a kicker. Why do elephants have flat feet?
Why?
For stamping out flaming ducks.
I like that, actually. I feel like my kids will like that. That's a good...
If anyone can explain that joke to me, because it just
They will.
And behind the counter was a young person making espressos, and it looked like it was a man. I mean, I don't know how he identifies. I don't want to, but he had a beard. He had a beard, a pronounced beard, and he was also wearing a lovely summer dress. Lovely.
How's he gonna pull this off, right?
You can't swear, right?
You can't swear. You can't smoke. You can't say gay.
Hey, Jesus, how you doing? You want me to pour you some wine? Wine.
Oh my God. So oh yeah, swear to God.
I have puppies in back.
Let's get this out of the way. Whore. Sometimes I stick my in a fishbowl just to let him know who's boss. He goes, what is eggnog? Is it really just
Everyone knows that racism is hate, but as a woke white person, you know that the best way to heal the world from hate is to hate the people that are spreading the hate. Let's take a look at your woke white person black belt skills. Tomorrow we should cancel the term white belt.
What are you talking about? You want to arrest people who are different than you politically?
National Kissing Day, also known in America as Hide from Rashida Tlaib Day. Hey, her mustache tickles, be honest.
Gutfeld's the #1 show on comedy. It's the #1 show on cable. So, from my standpoint, pretty quality stuff, pretty good. Not necessarily my thing, okay, but I'm not your hardline conservative in the traditional sense. So, looking forward, I don't think that the humor is a part of it, and I also don't think Nick is particularly that funny, if I should say so myself. But I have heard that potentially it's a crude humor that is drawing these young men toward him. But I did want to show that just as to kind of level set everything when it comes to humor, and especially when you get into the younger generations. Half the time, I don't even know what's going on with the young people and what they think is funny. They may be finding something in his personality and can relate to him in a way that's a little bit easier to have some camaraderie around, as opposed to some of the more boomer type humor, I guess. But I think for the most part, it's fine. Just good, clean fun.
all kidding aside, obviously we all know about your credentials and breadth of experience.
So this Obama just nails Trump here. It's hard watching Barack Obama from the past because I just feel bad. You know, we failed Mr. President Barack Obama so badly, and you can just tell he's very disappointed in us, and rightfully so. And but that said, you know, because he had every right to go after Donald Trump here, because at the time, I mean, you'll go on to see later in the clip. But before I go down too far down that rabbit hole, the main thing I want to stress before we get into this next series of clips is there's a lot of parallels that I see between Donald Trump and his rise to prominence within the conservative movement and some of what we're seeing right now with Nicholas J. Fuentes. So a lot of interesting parallels, just something to keep in mind and see. Let me know in the comments if you see similar parallels as well, both in the way that he is treated by corporate media and in their personality types and how they choose to engage in conflict and debate.
For example, no, seriously, just recently in an episode of Celebrity Apprentice at the steakhouse, the men's cooking team did not impress the judges from Omaha Steaks. And there was a lot of blame to go around, but you, Mr. Trump, recognized that the real problem was a lack of leadership. And so ultimately you didn't blame Little John or Meatloaf. You fired Gary Busey. And these are the kind of decisions that would keep me up at night.
President Obama will go down as perhaps the worst president in the history of the United States! Exclamation point at real Donald Trump. Well, at real Donald Trump, at least I will go down as a president.
Slam, dude.
Being a
Slam.
normal person, you had not heard of Nick Fuentes?
And which Republican candidate has the best chance of winning the general election?
Of the declared ones right now, Donald Trump. I especially like.
What about of all of them? I mean, Scott
fake
Walker.
Laughter from the audience.
That is why these online people like Fuentes are getting a lot of momentum with young people. How damaging could that potentially be?
How damaging is Speaker's Corner in Hyde Park?
He's an election denier, he's an anti-vaxxer, he's all the bad things, but I think this more than anything sums this gentleman up.
What, people calling me gay because I've never had a girlfriend? I think if anything, it makes me less gay. Never having a girlfriend, never having sex with a woman, really makes you more heterosexual because honestly, dating women is gay. Having sex with women is gay. And having sex with men is gay. And you know, it's all gay.
That was the Christmas episode, by the way.
Today, I'm very proud of myself because I've accomplished something that nobody else has been able to accomplish. I was just informed while on the helicopter that our president has finally released a birth certificate.
What's a gripe? What's a gripe? What's a gripe? I don't know. What's a gripe? What's a gripe?
American politics is like a debate between pro-Israel Jews on the Republican side and these open borders communist Jews on the Democrat side, on the left. Biden gets in 10 million illegal aliens, and we're throwing all the racists in jail and getting them banned on Twitter. Trump gets elected, and we're revoking the visas of anti-Semites, and we're bombing Iran, and we're giving Israel $12 billion in aid. This is a conversation. And it's like this in the media, too. When there's a debate about Israel, it's two Jewish guys. What happened on Monday, my interview with Tucker Carlson properly understood. This is what happens when left-wing Jews and right-wing Jews are having this conversation about what America is going to do and what Americans are going to have to pay for and where they're going to have to die. And two Americans interrupt that conversation, and they can't stand that. They hate that.
Hamas doesn't believe that Jews should be allowed to live in the state of Israel. Ben has said that Palestinians don't have the right to live in Israel, West Bank, or Gaza because he's called for physically expelling all of them. So in fact, the true moral and ideological partners, Ben, are you and Hamas.
Ben, go ahead.
That is absolute nonsense, Peter.
You didn't
My
write that column
position
in
on Israel was made clear in 2013 column, and to call me equivalent with people who are murdering Jews is insanity. It's beyond insulting. And if there's anybody who's emboldening Hamas to kill more children, it is you, because it's your policies which have emboldened Hamas. They know that people like you are going to get on American television and talk about how the Palestinians are meek victims, and whenever they fire rockets, it can be justified by Israeli policy. Hamas celebrates every moment you're on television.
Kind of want to dive further into what it is about him that leads to such a loyal followership.
Captivated by your talk a couple nights ago and asked if we could send a donation. You're worthy of moving the right people. We also sent a donation to your foundation tonight. We employ many young and personal men who recommended unlisted content. We will continue to support your foundation. That organized peace will be the path forward.
That's very touching. Thank you very much. I appreciate the. I gotta watch my language. I feel bad. When I know that families are watching, I feel bad because I'm not family friendly, okay? I'm an eccentric, I'm a real human being, and I'm not family friendly. So I feel bad when it's kids and women watching the show because I'm a freak and my language is so bad. But that's very touching, and I really appreciate the big super chat. Our youngest supporters, we appreciate you. Listen to your mother and father. Stay in school. Stay away from drugs and alcohol, okay? And remember, follow your parents, follow God. That's my corny advice from, I guess I'm Unc now. I guess I'm an old fart. I'm an old fart like your dad. I'm an old man now. But no, but that's very touching. I really appreciate that. And that's what it's all about. You know, it's about the future. It's about the kids.
A few moments later.
There's a way that Vance can serve 10 years as president. If Trump resigns or is removed/dies 2 years in, do you think that Trump not disavowing you could lead to this? Maybe he's in the files and is actually successfully removed from office?
Who knows? It's useless to speculate on, oh, well, what if this happened? Well, like, yeah, maybe that's the plan. That would be pretty unprecedented. Seems unlikely. But anything's possible. Like, what do you want to hear, Tard? Do you think I have a crystal ball? This is why I just hate stupid people so much. There are things that are knowable, and then there are things that are unknowable. And the things that are unknowable, no one knows them, okay? So these kinds of, like, what ifs. What if this? Do you think this? Well, what if we could make it? Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. Yeah, I guess so. And it's the stupid person that is unable to differentiate between a smart person that can make conjectures based on evidence, and then the category of knowledge, which falls into the domain of speculation, and they think that smart people have some access to what is unknown. Do you think that there's a grand conspiracy to remove Trump and give JD 10? I don't know. No one knows. No one knows that. It's not knowable. Okay? I am looking at the same information that you are. I am able to make conjectures based on patterns. If something like that happened, it would be unprecedented. It would be a conspiracy at the highest levels of government. No, if I knew it, everyone would know it, and then it would defeat the whole purpose. Okay, stupid? So no one knows that. Yeah, it's possible. Anything's possible. What if a bomb dropped on your head? What if a bomb dropped on your head right now? Like, no one knows. That's the point.
Okay. So I don't know what kind of leadership style you would call that, where you just basically bully and demean people. It's kind of like this guy, the teacher in Whiplash. That drummer really wanted to make him happy. He bought in, but he was kind of a hothead. The bald instructor there. Good movie. Hero's kind of one of those too. And Hiro Jinks Sushi, someone who's so dedicated to his craft that
what is your dating life?
Famously tough on his apprentices and his two sons, but they strived every day to be more like him, you know. So there's something to be said for that. It's kind of like the football coach that's a very mean kind of guy, but wins a lot of games. Bobby Knight, maybe. I feel like everyone's Republican dad is a big Bobby Knight fan. Bob Knight and Donald Trump are like their two heroes. I know for my dad that's true. I love my dad. But he really liked Donald Trump, and he really liked Bobby Knight when he was alive. And in all fairness, Bob Knight won a lot of games, but that guy was nuts. And Bob Knight liked Donald Trump. Donald Trump liked Bob Knight. What was very fascinating and took me this year with Nick and his rise to prominence was he became inevitable within the conservative media space and personality space. And it had a feeling of inevitability to it with the way that things kind of shook out. And so I think if you learn from and study this history or thinking about it, you can see how it could potentially continue on until he might reach some pretty influential levels of power and gain some pretty serious political capital in this country if he continues on this path. So Nick and Candace, this interview was kind of a long time coming, and it was pretty contentious. Like, it got pretty personal. And it's ultimately something that Tucker and Candace talked about when Tucker had Candace on his show. And then you'll kind of see what happens. I mean, eventually Nick ends up on Tucker's show, but...
I don't have a dating life.
So you don't date?
No.
You have a perspective about who you want to marry? Do you intend to get married?
I do. I do intend to get married and have kids.
So where are you at on that?
I'm trying to get prepared for that mentally.
What does that mean? You're 26 years old.
I like my life. I like being single. I like being a guy. I like what I like. I like reading books. I like doing my show. I'm a pretty antisocial person.
Yeah, I think you should probably mature on that point. I mean, what?
Yeah, I know. You don't got to tell me. I know.
I want to go for drives. Like that would be something. I mean, if you are, do you attend the mass?
I do.
Like, do you go every Sunday?
I do, yeah.
Okay, so you're like a committed Catholic. Then obviously, like, the perspectives on family. I mean, I personally, and this would be me lecturing, but I just feel like you really have no idea who you are until you start a family. And whether that means just marriage, some people who are struggling to have children, okay, fine. But there's such a growth that happens because of that. The things that you say, I do think, okay, he doesn't take into account family. Like, it's just Nick. Nick is in his own world, which can be, I think, a quite selfish perspective, which is fine. That's what you're saying. You like being selfish is another way to say what you just said. I like being selfish and I don't want to give of myself to somebody else. But
well, I also think there's something selfless involved, which is to say, I could go and start a family and drag them into a world of mine, which is pretty chaotic. Let's also get, I also don't appreciate the lecture. You don't know me, so I know you're married. I know you're older than me, but you don't know me. You don't know my life. You don't know my situation. I don't think you're in a position to give me advice, especially as a woman, honestly. I don't think women, this is something in the right wing. We say we're anti-feminist. And then women go around telling men what to do. It's a very difficult predicament, actually, for me, because I took on basically a huge sacrifice at the beginning. And I don't know that you really appreciate that enough. I think that you're somebody who, you had a career in politics for as long as I was fighting a battle. You were at Daily Wire with a contract. You're at Turning Point. You're making good money. You're doing book deals. You're part of this thing that I'm criticizing and paying a very heavy price for. And it's not to say you didn't make sacrifices and it wasn't a risk, and it paid off. You're doing great now, and I congratulate you. But with me, there was no calculation. I mean, I almost want to say I was 17. What's your excuse? I was 17 and I woke up.
I feel like you just got super triggered by me just saying something so casual. What was that about?
See, I don't appreciate
you're a woman.
that.
You're like, you're a woman. I mean, I was just having a conversation with you, just being like, hey, like you there's a lot of growth that comes from when you start a family. Like, it's a pretty cool thing to do. And I feel like you got pretty triggered there and got like a little upset. I don't know what I did there.
I don't like that you say triggered.
Well, you were a little bit triggered.
I'm being candid.
You just interviewed Nick Fuentes.
I did.
Or had a conversation with him. What did you think of that? What do you think of him?
I mean, I can tell you my experience was entirely fraudulent with him. So I actually can say my experience with Nick Fuentes is that he's a terrible person and a terrible human being, because why would you do that? There's no reason to do that.
I agree.
You could have come back onto the show. You could have had beginning of us discussing various topics.
I haven't watched a lot of Nick Fuentes in my life at all. But what I've seen, the guy's very talented. Like, just as a well, let me just say this. As someone who's talked to cameras his whole life, it is very hard to sit and just like riff for 20 minutes. And I think it's an amazing skill, and he has that skill. Nick Fuentes, this child, this weird little gay kid in his basement in Chicago.
And that's who's doing it. I'm being accused of being the CIA by Tucker Carlson with his daddy. Tucker Carlson's, and you know what? Here's the other thing. Tucker Carlson said I'm a weird gay kid in the basement. Yeah, and I'm from Chicago. You're right. Well, okay, you're not right about all of that. But I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth. Tucker Carlson says, I have so many trust funds, I never have to work. Tucker went to a $45,000 per year private high school, then a $45,000 per year selective Ivy League school in New England. Tucker Carlson's daddy was a Reagan appointee. And then, after years of bragging about being an elite, bragging about being so out of touch and so rich, now he's going to be the spokesperson for all the white people. Now he's going to roll up his sleeves. I just like to hunt and fish in my log cabin. I care about Klarna and credit card debt. But then when it comes to me, I'm one of the real disaffected white people. You want to talk about me and them? I am them. He says Nick Fuentes is leading all of the disaffected young white men. I am a disaffected young white man. I was a precocious, intelligent, young white college student who went to Boston University, who was pro-Trump and red-pilled by Trump and animated by Trump's message of America first. And I asked questions about Israel, and I was punished for it. I did it years before Tucker Carlson started talking about Israel last year. And I sacrificed, and I was targeted by the ADL, by the SPLC, by the federal government, by the conservative movement that both Candace and Tucker were a part of. Candace and Tucker had nothing to say about Israel until it became unavoidable last year. Not popular, but unavoidable. And now they want to gatekeep me out and do this personality attack and say I'm a bitter loser in my basement from Chicago. I'm a kid from Chicago. And they slipped up there because they forgot for 1 second that they're pretending to be the spokesperson for exactly that kind of person. Tucker's mask slipped, and he forgot for a minute that for 8 years he's been pretending to care about the plight of weird kids in their parents' basement who are broke and didn't go to an Ivy League school, living in cities that don't matter like Chicago, not like Washington, D.C. or LA or New York. And that's why he had such disdain and contempt for me in that moment. Between the personality attacks, he's lonely, he's weird, he lives in a basement. I'm sorry, did you guys forget that that's your target audience that you're trying to pander to? Did you forget that for 2 seconds? And I'm the inauthentic person? I am that person. I am a spokesman for the disaffected white man because I am one, and you two are not. Candace Owens got married to British royalty worth $200 million after meeting him for 2 weeks on Zoom. What the f*** is even that about? And Tucker Carlson's dad ran the CIA's propaganda empire fighting the Soviet Union. He went and fought with the Contras when he was in college. When I was in college, I was doing a webcam show in my friend's dorm room criticizing Israel. So who's the CIA cutout? Who's the inauthentic one? Who's the crazy, hateful one? I would never describe a well-meaning young white person who's trying to get ahead as a weird kid in his basement from Chicago. And what is that supposed to mean? What is wrong with being from Chicago? What is wrong with being weird? What is wrong with living in your basement? That's a lot of people because of the problems you claim to care about. Tucker's at Turning Point USA extolling the predatory nature of usury and how it's preventing young white men from getting homes. And then the week after says you're in your mom's basement. So which is it? So which is it? Do you care about Klarna and people going into debt to order pizzas and home ownership being impossible? Or do you think that's a contemptible, low-status thing to be ridiculed and mocked? Who's pandering here exactly? Because that wasn't you. You were born to the Swanson family fortune and your daddy who ran the CIA. You know, my dad didn't even graduate college. My dad worked for the tollway. His dad died of a drug overdose in the 70s. My mother's father was a garbage man in Chicago, and he committed suicide. He was a veteran of World War II. Who's the CIA cutout? Who's the poser? Who is America? I am America.
If you're on the left and you want to go to these protests to support the people who don't care about you at all, who want you dead, who want to destroy whiteness. They don't want you dead because we're all one color and they want peace and they don't want violence, right? But they do want to destroy whiteness. So if you're going to one of these things, to help them destroy whiteness, be ready to be destroyed.
Like, there is a growing number of disaffected young men in particular in America who are really deeply unhappy.
Was Zogslop Day. I had Chipotle, and I posted that on one of my tweets. And I usually get the bowl with the rice and the beans and the chicken and so forth. It all seems healthy, but I got responses back that explain that it's probably cooked in some bad oils.
Who likes his Zogslop?
Olivia Wilde has a new movie out. She says it's based on you, this insane man, this pseudo-intellectual hero from the incel community. Incel being these weirdo loner men who are despicable in many ways. Is that you? Are you the intellectual hero for these people?
Sure, why not? You know, people have been after me for a long time because I've been speaking to disaffected young men. You know, what a terrible thing to do that is. Talk to marginalized, we're supposed to have a voice.
It's making you emotional, talking about it.
Well, go on, you know.
2017 resolutions for white
try
guys.
To recognize that America was never great for anyone who wasn't a white guy.
Stop.
Can we all just agree?
Stop. I would like you to know what America was like for a white guy. First of all, we didn't steal the land from the Indians. We fought them for 400 years. Did a lot of bad but had a lot of bad done to us.
Well, we need to engage with Nick so we can reach his young audience. You will never reach my audience because you're not honest. You will never reach my audience because you are fake. With all my faults, all the mistakes I've made, all the ways that I'm not a conventional conservative or whatever, I'm authentic. You're fake. I'm honest. You're a liar. I am a disaffected young white man. I represent their interests because they're my interests.
Ben, it's great to see you. Why did you give a 45-minute speech about me at Stanford, and you won't even look at my
Hey, he's with his kids.
Come on, I'm right here. Hey, let him come. I know you're with your family, but I can't get through.
What they did.
Why do you keep saying Jewish business people? Why do you keep using their religion, their ethnicity? Why do you keep doing that?
Let me update it then. Okay, so I'll say this. Would I have grown into the box you want me to go in if I say to specify the business people that have raped my people that just so happen to be Jewish?
The United States has entered Israel's war with Iran. American stealth bombers and submarines launched a massive coordinated attack targeting 3 key nuclear sites.
You had to get rid of one religion, and it was Islam or Catholicism. Which one would you get rid of?
Great question.
Duh.
What?
What'd you say?
Catholicism.
What?
Yeah.
Of course. What do you think? Who do you think you're talking?
Listen,
you're on the debate stage with.
You guys have
we've known.
I look at Ben's life and I think if Ben were to embrace Jesus Christ, it would cause devastation to his family, to the people who love him, to the people who listen to him, to his position in the world. I just have this feeling that God has put this guy where he wants him to do what he wants him to do. And as you know, I feel that, the Jews are not abandoned by God.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, I said with Ali Alexander and Nick Fuentes that we're like the SWAT team of free thought, and I go in with this battle ram at the door, and then they come in with these laser beams and have that information. And we work together as a team. A lot of times in media, they want to single out one person and burn them to the core. That is a Zionist approach, and they're asking me to use that same approach. Well, hey, don't say all people, just say specifically the businessmen. And then I go on Lex Fridman, and I say who it's specifically, and that's still not enough. They're still taking it too far.
He's a very talented communicator. But he burns every bridge that he has because he doesn't know how to express gratitude. He's probably the biggest ingrate I've ever met in my life.
James is one of the dastardly worst person in the world. And yeah, they do bad things at Comet. There are underground rooms.
Guys go around calling themselves boyfriends. They live with their girlfriends. They have no kids. It's just as sterile as being a bachelor or being gay. You might as well be gay. You should be polygamous like you guys. Like, that's fucking based. Or an incel like me. Supporting this, providing them with foreign aid and missiles, and giving them cover at the UN and bribing their enemies and people criticizing them. That's what this is about. That's what Mark Levin said. I'll read it again because maybe it's not clocking to you. And he said this in his furious Jewish voice. He said, we're going to take names. We're going to see who's associated with who platforms who supports who. We're going to make our decisions. I've heard this phrase, we don't deplatform people. We sure as hell do. We don't have a discussion. You're the enemy. He says, you're the enemy. How many more times do we have to hear about pressuring Israel to get a ceasefire? And think about how this question is phrased. How many times do we have to hear about this? He says. Like, it's an inconvenience. How dare you? How dare you talk about it? How dare you ask a question? He says, how many times do we have to hear that Judea and Samaria are off the table? He says, it's not off the table unless we say it's off the table. Excuse me? You forget what fucking country you think you represent? Did you forget that for 1 second? In between these totally transparently fake appeals to American history, did you forget for 1 second who you're pretending to represent? It's not off the table unless we say it's off the table. Who's we? The Republican Jewish Coalition? And who the f are you to say that? And we're the bad, right? We're in the wrong here. He goes on, how many more times do we have to listen to members of Congress talk about genocide in Gaza? How many times do we have to hear about members of Congress going on and on about the Israel lobby? You have to hear, we have to hear about this. Who's we? The Republican Jewish Coalition? You think you're entitled? You think you're beyond reproach, beyond criticism? Is that it? It's not off the table unless we say it's off the table. We don't have discussions. You're the enemy. We cancel you. They're calling me. What are we going to do about so-and-so? We're taking names. We'll make our decisions. They gave the whole game away. This is what people hate. You know, if you're not emotionally touched by this, you're just not a real believer. You know, I hope people can recognize at this point that this is, for me and for the people in this movement, this is about something bigger than all of us. And it's not for the sake of participating in something that is bigger. This is about America. This is about God. This is about the European civilization that served as a vessel for the gospel for thousands of years, that evangelized the world. Life is beautiful. For the first time, maybe in human history, life is not so brutal and nasty and ugly. We live in a beautiful world. We really do live in a good world. And we're on the precipice of all of that being taken away. All of that is being mortgaged. It's being covered in a shroud of darkness. The pillars of it are being smashed and destroyed. And people have no idea what will come crumbling down on top of them. And Trump represents that so fully. I don't think he perfectly instantiates it always with some of the things that go on in the campaign. And, you know, I have my criticisms, but he's become such a symbol and an icon of hope itself. and of the country. And it's not idolization, but God does appoint leaders over the people, and he is obviously one of them. And so if you're not touched by the image of him getting up and raising his fist bloodied in front of the flag, yelling to fight, that was his first instinct. I said the other day, men shouldn't cry, but if that doesn't bring you to tears, you're not a real human being. You're not a real American. And notice who was silent. And this is nothing petty. This is very important. Notice who was silent today.
You will have to flee the United States?
I mean, I think that every Jew throughout world history who has a brain and knows history has always wondered if a country that is not a Jewish state is going to eternally provide them security guarantees and full citizenship, of course. I mean, that's I think to think that that's why the existence of the state of Israel is the single greatest guarantor of my loyalty to the United States, frankly.
When Israel was under attack on October 7th, everybody broke the Sabbath to say, give them hell. When our leader was shot in the face, silence from Ben Shapiro, from Jordan Peterson. Not important. Not important enough. Un-American. Un-American. Tonight is a night for Americans. Fuck them. And all these Israel firsters on Shabbat, they're going to take a break to tweet in favor of a genocide. Go and give them hell. Kill them all. Our president was killed, almost, in front of the flag, bloodied, but undeterred, raising a fist, commanding us to fight. Silence. They can burn in hell. Just like the traitors that put Christ up on the cross. It's unbelievable. Unbelievably un-American. They can never live that down. They cannot, should not ever live that down. Anybody that did anything other than talk about this today should not ever live this down. Because you're just not with our country. Anyway, so that's that. Intense show.
If we were to take Nick Fuentes totally at his word for why this tipping point has occurred and why he has this inevitable feeling to him, he says, and this is from his perspective, that it's because he is right about the Jewish-Israel problem and the relationship that the United States has with Israel and what that means for the deep state and how we prioritize our resources at the highest levels of authority in our country. Nick believes that he is totally right about that, and so that is his singular focus. And so this is why I do think that with his consistency in that focus, he needs to be challenged on that specifically. And if he's not, then he is inevitable. And we don't want to find out what that looks like, do we? So as we focus on the supplier himself and what is the value proposition behind Nick Fuentes, I do think that there is something to be said for the singular focus that he has on the craft itself, and it's something that is unique within conservative media. You don't see a concentrated focus on one thing and subject matter expertise to that level very often. So I do think that's a differentiator, for one. For two, Nick's personal story resonates very much so with the young white disaffected white men in this country, and that is something that I think that is just an inevitability. There's nothing that can be done about that. If you're looking to challenge Nick and his new super PAC that he has began through his America First movement, there's nothing that can be done from that standpoint. The only thing I believe that is going to deter Nick from maintaining his followership and the volume that he's been able to enjoy here as of late is if there's something truly inauthentic about his background and what he shares in his beliefs that reveal that it's not a personal proclivity that he has to the beliefs that he eschews. That would be critical to his connection to the consumers and what the consumers are looking for in this value proposition. And so, as I see it right now, until Nick Fuentes is challenged by someone who's more prevalent within the conservative movement, someone I think that Ben Shapiro is probably the one that's most likely to take up the mantle, but we shall see what happens. Last thing I'll say about this, if you look at Nick's rhetoric when it comes to Israel and being America first and about the Jewish influence in this country, and he is very well versed in it, he understands it, and I think what I would say is that when he uses the phrase Christ is King, the question of if he is weaponizing that phrase to drive others away from Christ and as a wedge and as a militant battering ram, as opposed to a unifying conversation. And where's that balance? So I think that, as the CEO of my own company, I can attest to the fact that there is it's a huge deal to be able to hang your cap on a particular expertise, right? If there's something that in general you have a proclivity for and you have a singular laser-like focus on that thing. And again, I'll reference the sushi chef and Hero Dreams of Sushi. You're talking about a craftsman that would have done it for pennies on the dollar because he had that singular drive and focus. And I do think that Nick's communication, the way that he packages it, and his knowledge base that he's been building for a long time now, I'm not totally sure where the conservative movement and the right wing goes from here. As your leader for our particular venture, it's important that we do stay engaged with these events. But looking out into the future, I do aim to create more of these types of informational videos where we focus on particular experts in their fields. And if we see, if the person that is at the top of their industry or has experienced remarkable success, as it does stem from them exploiting something that they've seen in the market and being very strategic because their end goal in mind was the success itself, or is it someone who truly just focused on supplying the product itself, the subject matter, to the point where the market demand came naturally? I think that's fascinating. I think that's where we want to be. But first, we need to figure out what we're offering, right? So.